Welcome. This is day one and session one of Water and Wash Career Days, diving into a water and wash career. You should have seen a poll on your screens when you came in today. Catherine, do we want to share those results now? So we can see how you're joining us today.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Do you want me to share those results, Alec?
Sure, that would be helpful.
Okay, so hopefully participants can see the results as I talk through them. So the first question was, in the past 2 months, how actively have you searched for a job related to wash and water? And we've got about 20% saying not at all, another 20% at the two. So again, the low level, but over 40% of you are constantly looking for jobs in the sector. So that's really great. And another 18% are pretty actively searching. And then the second question is, how frequently do you think about shifting the type of work you do? Maybe you have a job, but you're looking to change it. And on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is, again, not at all, and 5 is all the time, maybe even daily, we've got about 45% right there in the middle. So thinking about it, and then another 33% on the upper end of being pretty keen to look for something new. So with that, I'll stop sharing the poll results and I'll pass it back to you, Alec.
Thank you. And thank you all for sharing your experience with us. It's good to know how you're coming to this session today, and it sounds like you are in the right place because we will be focusing on starting and also shifting careers in the water resources and wash systems sector. If you can go to the next slide, I just have a few housekeeping items. We talked about some of these as you came into the session today, but just to be clear, we will be recording the session, so you will have access to a public link after it goes online. We have interpretation today. All of our speakers will be speaking in English, but if you speak French or Spanish, you can choose those channels and get interpretation in real time. Please follow our code of conduct at all times, including if you come on the mic to ask a question or are interacting in the chat. Be kind and respectful, and we'll have interactive bits of the session today, so please pay attention and be present so that you can engage with the speakers. We also have captions today, translated captions. So you should see an option at the bottom of your screen here. There is an example on the slide, the CC, show captions, and that allows you to have translated captions on your screen in another language other than English, French, or Spanish. Here, the examples are Russian, Arabic, or Japanese. Um, this is a little bit of a new technology for us, so hopefully this works for everyone, but we'd love to hear your feedback as well on how it goes today with those captions. Next slide. All right, that's it for housekeeping. So I'm going to kick us off. This is our third year of offering these free virtual sessions as part of Water and Wash Career Days, and it's something we are really pleased to continue offering in support of what we know and believe is a critical sector. A bit about the three main partners that are putting on Career Days. I am Alex Shannon, the Director of Operations from Agenda for Change, and we are a collaboration that brings together diverse organizations working in the water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH sectors, to collectively advocate for and support national and local governments in strengthening WASH systems. Our second host is the Community of Women in Water, which brings together women professionals globally who work on water and wash related challenges and aims to amplify women's contributions by strengthening their learning networks to lead, support, and teach others. And thirdly, Rural Water Supply Network, or RWSN, is a global network for rural water professionals, and its aim is to improve the quality of rural water services and their management. We are so pleased to offer interpretation for this event. So once again, please choose your channels. We are keeping this event interactive and we'll have polls and other ways for you to engage. We've already shared the results of poll one. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator for today, Precious Ola is a process engineer at Binny's UK, which delivers, manages, and designs sustainable water, wastewater, and flood risk infrastructure, often using digital technology and nature-based solutions. Precious has been an active member of the IWA UK Young Water Professionals, or YWP, conference for the past 4 years, including chairing the conference in 2025. Precious, it's really lovely to have you with us today, and I am going to hand the word over to you now.
Thanks, Alec. Hi, everyone. As Alex said, my name is Precious Ola, and I'll be moderating today's session. We're really excited to have two fantastic speakers with us. Before we begin, a quick note for the audience. If you have already a question or you think of one as the conversation evolves, please could you put it in the chat and start your message with #Q so that our IT team can flag it for the speakers. To start, I'd like to welcome Parvin Ngala from World Vision. Parvin, could you briefly introduce yourself and then respond to a question that came through during registration? How can you launch a career in WASH in the current humanitarian context with fewer and fewer opportunities? And is there only one path?
Thanks a lot, Precious. And a big welcome to everybody who's joined this call from across the world. I was just looking through the names and definitely sounding like we do have quite a diverse team. I know the team also did a bit of analysis in terms of, are they entry people or people coming, who are already professionals, having worked in the sector for some time. So clearly there is a need around this here. So my name is Parvin Ngala. I am the Global Director for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene with World Vision. And I've been working in the sector for now nearly 25 years. 25 years evolving in roles that, have been both technical, especially in terms of WASH, which is my background, but also evolved, in terms of operational leadership, management, organizational development, and then nearly circling back, as it were, to oversight of WASH portfolio. I've had the privilege of working on the African continent, where I do come from. I come from Kenya, but also on the Asian continent, Southeast Asia, Middle East, where we currently have very unique needs. And so, even with that, a lot of learning that has happened along the way. I will also highlight that, even as we talk about careers, there's been a lot of my experience has been about just the shifting. And so I will be responding to your question, especially in referencing my own experience, that it's not one path. Many of us here are either, you're students or you are a professional, young professional, somebody considering, family. So it's not one path. That's definitely been my experience. In responding to your question around people who are interested, especially in the humanitarian sector, what I would say as you launch your pathway is just as a start, recognizing that it is changing so much. It is changing so much. At the moment, there are many questions about, where is the funding going to come from? There are many questions around, what is the future of the sector, especially as we look at the differences in needs. There are many questions around, is it, local organizations, international organizations, because we are also having discussions around localization. So what I would say is just as a start, in terms of opportunities, that to be cognizant that it is a diverse field. It is a diverse field, so you don't come at it from one perspective. I came from an environmental science perspective, or at least background. There are many of the people that I work with that are, in engineering background, those who have done integrated water resource management. So you come at it from different viewpoints. What I will finally say is that you really need to anchor it to what is it you're interested in? What is it that you're interested in? What are you passionate about? And I certainly know, especially from a WASH perspective, that there's been quite the joy. There's always the joy, especially as I connect with communities, because that's sort of what landed me in the WASH sector. The ability to make a difference in the communities, certainly within the work we do in World Vision. whenever we go back to the communities, being able to reference what we've done around water, who we've worked with around improving sanitation and hygiene are critical drivers. So what you are interested in, needs to anchor you in that regard. So I think the key points for me, based on my own experience, is that you might start in one path, but it's not a straight path. It's very, you need to be cognizant of changes along the way. That said, you need to anchor it still back in what you're passionate about, knowing that the sector is changing and we also need to be agile.
Thank you, Parvin. That was really insightful, and I'm sure everyone found that very encouraging, especially because, as we all know, this is quite a challenging job market. So thank you, Parvin. Now I'd like to introduce Josh Newton from Josh Waters Jobs. Josh, could you briefly introduce yourself and reflect on this past year? As I said before, it's been a tough year. For our sector. What trends are you seeing in water and wash jobs at the moment?
Yeah. Thank you, Precious. And yeah, thank you all for having me today. So yeah, my name is Josh Newton. I'm the founder of Josh's Water Jobs, which has now been around for about a decade. And that's as a volunteer side of things. But then in my day job, I freelance working on global water governance. And how basically countries interact with each other in the UN system related to water issues. So yeah, the trends of the past year, it's been up and down and all around. But I think it probably no surprise to anyone in terms of the international positions. So the organizations, intergovernmental, international NGOs, those positions are down because funding is down. But at the same time, I also am seeing that localized positions are actually going up, which is actually what we want in the end. So that's quite positive. So while, working for an international organization in a third country, there's still those opportunities. There's just less of them. But sometimes working in your own countries for intergovernmental organization as a local position or a local NGO or an international NGO working locally, those positions are still there, and they're actually, after a slight lull, they're kind of rebounding now. So that's kind of, what's going on with the international side of things. I would say that I also seen that private sector is up pretty much everywhere. Private sector is getting more involved in water and the delivery of water supply and sanitation. And probably also no surprise, what we're seeing with jobs is the demand in tech, AI, data. I even saw it was an internship. It's on the website right now about wash and AI, like very specifically. So we're seeing that creep into the sector as well. Um, and yeah, the thing is that, like, no matter what, though, I would say overall, though, the number of jobs hasn't gone down. It's just how they're shifting. There's always water work to be done everywhere in every country. It's just the who's hiring is shifting around right now because of where the funding is. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I definitely learned a thing or two from both those answers, so thank you. Now we're going to move on to our poll session. So we would like to bring in your voices. When you registered, many of you submitted questions. So we've selected 3, and we'd like you to vote for the one you want most answered. You should see a poll pop up on your screen, and then please select the question you'd most like Parvin and Josh to respond to. And just a reminder, you can still add questions in the chat. Please start them with #Q, and feel free to thumbs up any other questions that you'd also like to see answered, so we know that there's interest. So I'll just give you a minute. To answer that. Catherine, I don't know, are you sharing the results from it?
I have the poll open still. Should I end the poll now?
Yes, please. Should be enough time.
And here are the results.
Thank you. So it looks like the top two are, B and C. I kind of wanted to know the answer to A, so I might just sneak that one in as well, just for my own, selfish reasons. So we'll start with B. So why is the wash sector? Sorry, I think that's supposed to say what is the wash sector, and which is the fundamental to human survival, considered a less attractive career compared to other options, and perceived as lacking career prospects, i.e., lower salaries than energy, utilities, and few entry-level opportunities. Either Josh or Parvin, you can answer.
I'm happy to start, Precious.
Okay.
I am with you in terms of I'd have loved to see the poll land us at A, but definitely I think, look, the people in the room speak in terms of what they are really keen on. One of the things I just want to say, especially as we talk about why is the wash sector, considered less attractive. First of all, is wash seems invisible, but the truth is, when it's working, but when it's not working, the truth is it's catastrophic. Think about the COVID pandemic, as in if we did not, it was health issues. I have never needed to talk about hand washing as much as during the wash pandemic. And you saw how it stopped the world, It seems to be very simple actions, but they make such an impact, And I think the thing is, energy sector might seem more visible, it might seem more attractive, but we do know that the impact is substantive. I also just want to connect it to, the earlier question around, transitioning into the sector. At the moment, we are having to make reference to how wash contributes to other outcomes. We are making connections to health. We are making connections to, nutrition. We are making connections to even energy from the perspective of what water can do, for livelihood. So there are so many other connections that, access to wash can do. What we just need to do is to profile it. And I think that for us as actors in the sector, a lot of us, if you look at even the World Vision strategy, we are talking about water as an integrator. It is the blue thread of integration to so many other outcomes. So I just want to profile that we do know, that while wash seems invisible when it's working, it is catastrophic when it's not. Yeah, we do need to do better in terms of showcasing what the connections are. Climate at the moment is another major connection that we are making in terms of the skill sets that people need to have as we talk about the wash sector. So I feel that it's a lot of it is on us in terms of how we package. We sometimes simplify it, while there are clearly many connections that can be made in terms of what wash can do, and the salaries element is very much connected to recognizing how it contributes to other areas rather than it being just a siloed intervention. So that's what I would say. It's invisible, when it works, but definitely catastrophic when it doesn't.
Yeah, that was a very, very detailed and very good answer. Because of time, we're going to move on to the second question. Josh, how could I transition from the public sector to the private sector? You did mention a bit about that in your introduction. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is it's not uncommon that this happens, especially later on in one's career. But in terms of the methodology of doing that, is like purely from applying to jobs on your CV, is you kind of, and this is when you're shifting from any type of career to another thematic career, you have to really translate the language that you're using, so that your target audience, so this would be the private sector, understands what you're talking about. So public sector language and jargon is not the same as private sector language and jargon. So you just have to kind of quote unquote translate your CV into your target audience, the private sector, and the language they use. Um, what is a boon, I think, is that often because the private sector definitely engages with the public sector in terms of tenders and contracts and implementing, having a public sector knowledge is actually quite valuable with the private sector because of that familiarity and the interactions that do take place. So that is a positive if you're looking to move towards the private sector. And for like almost any job, what I recommend is it's all about, community building, networking, reaching out to those who work in the private sector and companies that you'd like to work for. Go and talk to them, do informational interviews to get familiar with the company. What's your, what's the culture look like? What's the day-to-day job look like? Just so you become more familiar and know kind of a little bit better what you're going into when you're making that shift from the public to the private sector.
Thanks, Josh. Could we also, Parvin, could you also answer question C if you have anything to add?
No, I think I won't add much to what Josh has said. I think I want to recognize that both are very valuable. I think more so now when we see, that especially as WASH actors, we are concerned about systems, that we set up systems which do not last. And the public sector, the governments are a big part of what, with Agenda for Change, with, rural water and sanitation network, all of us are talking about system strengthening. So we do need people in the policy space, and I'm seeing a question in the chat in that regard. I think the private sector offers a lot of unique ideas. Maybe there's more flexibility, innovation, so we certainly want to be able to be in spaces where we can leverage, the unique attributes of those spaces, innovation, and bring it to really build the WASH sector. So I will say that my intervention is mostly about valuing both, but knowing that, there are uniqueness in those spaces.
Thank you, Parvin. Seeing as we have a little bit of time in the section, we're going to go back to question A, the one that I said I wanted answered. So what challenges are women likely to face in water and WASH careers, and how do we combat these challenges? Obviously, Josh, not trying to, you are a man, so not that you can't have an answer to this, but I'm going to put it to Parvin for a second, and then, Parvin, could you?
I will first say, honestly, I think it's definitely from those of us who are involved in gender, equity. We know that we do need this to support one another. If it isn't for my husband, if it isn't for my colleagues, that we, all of us are important to this question. I will say, just based on my own experience, that several things. One, even from a recruitment perspective, I am more likely for the WASH sector to find more men than women when, we're looking at applicants. And I think sometimes we as women judge ourselves much higher. You look at the JD and you're like, oh, no, can't do this, can't do this. But we know that the gentlemen are much more, keen to say, I could try that, I could try that. So I think it's both, in terms of ourselves, holding ourselves back, but also just seeing sometimes what we do in terms of from a studies perspective, less technical people than let me not use the word technical, because I feel all of us bring some technical skills to the work that we do. The second thing is that WASH actually is a lot more field based, and especially if you think about entry level, or maybe when you start having children. I certainly had to make some decisions about being able to work in the sector on account of how old my children were, and so people get limited. I definitely have friends, know of people who made decisions to shift away from the sector because they felt it would be very hard for them to be based in the field. So what we are doing, certainly as part of our different organizations and as people who've experienced this, is how do we make policies, how do we make adjustments to environments that allow women to actually be able to be to be in those spaces also. So those are some of the things, just based on my own experience, the field expectations, our own holding ourselves back, but also a lot more WASH, a lot less women in WASH.
Yeah, thank you, Parvin. Josh, obviously you can answer the question as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of obstacles to overcome. First, there's the sector. There's stereotyping, involved in the sector. Um, we have many here on this call, and I know many of them. But there's a lack of female role models in the space. There are amazing ones, but it's just the number is low just because of the numbers of women in this space are less. I think, one thing I talk about with getting jobs, it's very kind of informal how you sometimes get jobs. It's not necessarily applying, but it's who you know. And that space is really dominated by men, especially in WASH. And so that's another it's another challenge to overcome. There's obviously harassment, workplace safety issues. And then yeah, as Parvin was mentioning, like the limited flexibility in workplace policies, maternity leave, especially when with the children, that definitely makes working in WASH less attractive because it's a male dominated sector. They not necessarily thinking of how flexible policies would allow more women to get into the sector. So.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if I put my own thing in there, like I currently work on site and I am literally the only woman. So I understand how it can, yeah, we kind of just need to get to a place where we can encourage more women to just be in those male dominated spaces because as they say, there is strength in numbers. And yeah, I feel like more people, the more of us there are, more change that it will basically, yeah, roll. Um, but thank you both. We are now going to move on to our mock interview section. So over the last 2 years of these career days, a common question has been, how do you actually do an informal interview? I think Josh, you mentioned just now about carrying out one as a job seeker. So this year we're going to show you. I'll be asking Josh questions just like you might for a short interview of 10 minutes. Then Parvin will share her thoughts on what she might have asked or suggested. So, right. So we're going to set a scenario, I guess. Um, so, hi, Josh. How are you?
Hey, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Um, so I'm a process engineer and I'm looking to take some of the skills I've acquired here in the UK water industry abroad to help improve the water and wastewater system in West Africa, specifically Nigeria, which is where I'm originally from. What would you say are the most effective pathways you're seeing for professionals who want to move into the international global water work, whether they're early careers like me or a junior, or they're very established in another part of the sector?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, it's very kind of at a basic level, it's just about getting as much exposure you can in any way. Because often it's difficult without international experience to get a job internationally. So that's why networks are really important. Community of Women in Water, youth networks, International Water Association, which you're a part of. Those things give you exposure to the international. And then it's about attending conferences and again, getting exposure, meeting people who work internationally, getting them familiar with you. Um, Volunteering in some way. We have some volunteers who are working on this call, on this webinar today and getting, exposure through that. It's all about meeting people. So you kind of create opportunities as much as possible to meet people and create experiences, whether through volunteering, potentially internships, that'll help you just get a foot in the door enough. Another option is like if you work at a company or an organization that works internationally, is really kind of sidling up as much as possible to those teams that work internationally and trying to get exposure and working with them so that you can eventually take that step to work abroad.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. I'll definitely keep those pathways in mind. I guess, yeah, it's just about networking basically and getting your foot in the door and trying to just get in there.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously working in a well-resourced and highly regulated water system in the UK. How best can I translate my experience to be relevant and effective in international water and wash contexts with very different constraints?
Yeah. Yeah, so this kind of is similar to the question I answered before about kind of public to private. In a way, it's like it's taking, researching the methodologies that are used for implementation in these countries on the ground and translating them because you obviously have a ton of knowledge with what you currently work on. And those can be applied to on the ground in countries where you would like to work. So it's actually, researching what those methodologies are. And then when applying to jobs, you're framing your experience that how would you address those issues in their language in more instead of it's humanitarian wash language rather because that's not what you're working on even though you have experience that does apply to that. So again, it's translated in the language so whoever's reading your CV will understand it in that context. So that's a big part of it, and understanding what are those methodologies that are used on the ground, and then being able to apply the experience you have to those, and conveying that you understand that and you get that, especially when you get to the interview stage.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. What if it's like about me as a person? So like what can I do about it, do I need to have a certain personality trait as well? Um, yeah.
I think, especially moving to a third country, that's not your own, being open, being able to adapt, understanding it is to work in a multicultural setting is really important. And just being open to those changes. And sometimes that can be quite difficult, no matter which country you're going to. So I think just that being open, being able to adapt, asking questions, being curious, not coming in with, having thinking that you have all the answers. And so approaching it in a very humble manner. I think that you also have stuff to learn from the country you're working in. It's a two-way street in that regard. So I think that's, just being open, humble, and adaptive, I think is kind of the best way to work in a new country.
Mm, thank you. So I'm just a process engineer that works on site, as I said.
Mhm.
And some days I feel like I'm not really doing much, like I'm just sampling. Um, is my job good enough?
Definitely yes. Definitely yes. There's so many, as Parvin mentioned in her intro, like there's so many different elements and so many different jobs, and they're all important. And that even can be, we need good accountants and finance people working in these organizations too. But every element that goes into making, a water system work, wastewater treatment plant work, to have good governance. You need people in all of these areas. So, yeah, what you're doing, even if it doesn't feel maybe on a day-to-day basis that you are contributing, it's still an intricate link and makes everything else work. If you take that out, then there's going to be failure. So, yeah, everybody who is contributing to the water space is valuable, and we need all sorts of different types of professionals. It's just not one type. We just don't need a certain type of engineer or a certain type of policy people. We need a big kind of family of water people working towards the goals that we've set to ourselves.
Mm. Thank you, Josh. That was really practical and insightful. Parvin, what were your thoughts during the interview?
Mm,
And is there anything you would have asked instead, or if you've got any answers to my questions or any tips you'd suggest to others?
Thanks, Precious. And Josh, I really liked your reflections, especially around, you start wherever you are. Start wherever you are. Sometimes I feel maybe more so now, that because of the way social media can clarify, glorify titles, and there's a sense of people saying, unless my title is this, I don't have it. I'm not doing, so Precious, process engineer. It's really about what you're doing. I feel like that's important. The other thing that I would like to add, especially because Josh, you mentioned volunteering. My own journey included volunteering. I volunteered right out of university, but I also volunteered later on after I had taken some time off, because of family. I came back and I was like, you know what? I don't know enough about, I feel like things have changed. Could I volunteer? I will not say how old I am, but I was in my mid, and and it's be humble enough. There's nothing like a recommendation that is based on somebody knowing you, not a recommendation based on, okay, something online, somebody knowing you. That for me has been the best reference. Somebody who knows you as a hardworking person, as somebody who's really keen to learn, but also explore. The final thing that I will put, especially as we talk about currently, and I'm seeing the chat questions around how do we learn, what is it that we need to have, is the agility, being willing to look at what else is happening out there. Certainly from my own experience with interviewing, if I'm interviewing a candidate and they tell me about what else they are doing, they tell me about things they are learning, I'm more likely to get interested in that candidate than the one who tell me, this is what I do. It's only about sanitation. We are looking for people who are willing to step outside the comfort zone, be willing to explore, but actually bring in a lot of learning from their own experiences.
Yeah, thank you, Parvin. So we are going to go through some of your questions now. As Parvin said, there's quite a lot of questions to get through. So we will start with, oh, this one is quite long, so bear with me. We have traditionally focused on soft WASH skills and not only technical skills, such as inclusion, capacity building and facilitation, social research policies. With the private sector now hiring more and leading more projects, should we still prioritize training in this? Or is the industry moving toward a more technical and efficiency focused skill set? Do these social skills still have a high market value in a profit orientated landscape? That was a lot of words. Hopefully you caught all of that.
Curious, Josh, what you think, because in my opinion, I don't know. Maybe I have a slightly different experience with the wash sector in terms of, that actually we've not put as much emphasis on soft skills. I think we've tended to put a lot more emphasis on the hard skills. Can they build a system? Can they, are they able to check the measurements and make sure the pipe work is right, so much so that actually, because we are working with people, that's where the gap I was mentioning earlier about system strengthening, sustainability has become a gap because we're so bent on just getting the infrastructure right that we forget that this infrastructure will need to be maintained by people, that we'll need to have the community engagement that says, why are we still having certain behavior change issues insofar as hygiene and sanitation, that those are still crucial. So I'm differing a bit in terms of, that we've put more emphasis on soft skills. I think we definitely need to do more. Yeah. With regards to the private sector and other sectors, I know I haven't, worked with them as such, but they have been more partners in the roles and organizations that I've been with. Yeah. I think they also are moving a lot more to, incorporating soft skills because it's the inclusion, it's the questions around how do we partner, how do we bring in other people to solve this rather than coming with a solution. I don't know if you've seen this meme somewhere where, people came up with a solution and, the women were asking, should I carry it on my head? Should I carry the computer on my head as the water or, are you giving me the water? So let's be careful. Sometimes, it's the people behind these solutions that are more important than, what we think is a solution. So the soft skills are important. I don't know what you think, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree, especially what you started with. I think it's only recently now that we're looking at these soft skills or the soft side of WASH that say, years ago it was all about infrastructure. So this is only more of it's only nascent now, I'd say in the last 5 or 10 years that we're looking at these things. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think there is a recognition across the board about the importance of these and how it creates for more effective, sustainable delivery of water and sanitation. So, and I think that's, yeah, like I said, across the board, all types of organizations. So, um, yeah, whereas I find in water resources management, some of that soft stuff is kind of being uh, put aside in terms of the hard, the wash is sticking with that with all these changes that are going on because I think it's there definitely there is the acknowledgement of of its importance. So I still, yeah, I'm a big advocate of soft skills across the board for any job as well, because it just makes you more effective and the system more effective.
And I feel like more human too. Um, so thank you both. So next question. Before I start thinking about a career in water resources and WASH, what are online resource sites I can study short courses to gain the right qualifications?
I'll give a stab at that. There's many out there. I'd see like the some of the biggest resources that have the most options is IWA. The training courses that are available there. IHE Delft as well has a lot of like almost every topic you can on water you can find some kind of online training sources. Those are the two off the top of my head. But yeah, some of the the online Coursera and those MOOC clearinghouses, they do also offer, and some of them are free as well, and they're pretty good. So yeah, so off the top of my head, that's what I can think of.
Thanks, Josh. Parvin, do you have anything to add?
Now, I want to add to that because also just maybe like the Coursera's, I remember, those were key places where I've signed up for courses. I will, just because, and I'm potentially plugging, I studied with Loughborough, and Loughborough really did a great job, WEDEC, of having online content, but also resources that are very useful even now as I sort of I'm in the sector. So I know there's a lot more, thankfully, because of things being digitalized. Yeah.
Thanks, Parvin. Also, I don't know if this is helpful as well, but if you are in a professional registration like IChemE in the UK, or like ICE or those kind of professional bodies, a lot of the time they have some training courses as well. Not all of the time you have to pay for a membership to have access to the courses, so you can check those ones out as well. Um, how can I pursue WASH in the economic and social policy way? I am aware with how WASH is really impactful within the humanitarian sector, but how about opportunities in the development sector? Anyone want to take a stab?
I don't know what you're seeing, Josh. I think what's been interesting for me. So I had the opportunity to actually even work with a local organization, back in Kenya. And one of the things that I found useful with that was that there was a lot more connect with the government. I'll be honest, going back to the system strengthening discussion, the fact that we do see major need for, policies that are, gender, focusing, addressing the gender gaps, policies that are looking at prioritization of, both the infrastructure and the sustainability of it. So we do need the economists, we need the policy, advocates in the government, especially because then they have a better understanding of how to engage around this. I'll pick an example. One of the countries, actually two countries on the African continent, where at the moment the partnership we have with the government is a co-investment model, where they have said, because this is so important to us, we are willing to partner with you and give 40% of the infrastructure development because we know it is important for our citizens. So we need those people in that space. Yeah.
Yeah, and just quickly on the jobs specifically, yeah, say 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't see any jobs in the social slash economic side of WASH, but now you do see them. It's there's a recognition of them by NGOs, by UNICEF, WHO, those who are working in those spaces. Sometimes they'll be in the job title, but sometimes they won't be, and you really have to look in the job description, or it'll be a part of the job that a percentage of the duties you have will be focused on those elements. And yes, and I agree with Parvin, like in government, they're thinking about this in multiple ways. So yeah, so those jobs are out there. That's more than they were, say, a while ago. But you have to be you have to look for them because they're not always clear.
Pressure, there's something that Josh has said that I just want to reflect back, especially insofar as how we are seeing, how we are presenting job descriptions nowadays. I think one part is we start with the technical element. Maybe if it is about sanitation and hygiene, we're like, if you have training in public health or something, or if it is in engineering or integrated works at resource management, that we have that part of it. Yeah. Then we now have a component that is about engagement, external engagement. How are you, what has been your experience, so that there's, we're getting a sense of you in that regard. But especially insofar as external engagement, it's also sector, what we call in my organization, thought leadership, So I tend to challenge even my own colleagues. Are you reflecting on what's happening around? Are you publishing? Are you putting, thought pieces out there that actually mean you're not only looking at the internal, but you're looking at what does that mean externally, yeah? So all of you here in the call, as in, if you're talking about, opportunities, part of it is how are you profiling yourself? What are you doing? Are you on what you're passionate around or what you're working around? How are you articulating, who you are in the critical spaces? Yeah.
Thanks, Parvin. I think we have time for one more question. How can you integrate internationally when you are a hydraulic design engineer based in Cameroon if the host country does not speak your language? So I guess we can kind of open that up. So not specific to Cameroon or being a hydraulic design engineer.
Yeah. Could you repeat that, please? Sorry.
How can you integrate internationally when you are a design engineer based in Cameroon if the host country does not speak your language?
I'm not too sure what that question is about in terms of speaking the language. Is it about policy in terms of not agreeing on certain things? Is it about language specifically?
I have a feeling it's yes.
Okay. Josh, I don't know about your experience in terms of people apply. I certainly usually would like to have as much in terms of people who have experience with different languages, who can speak different languages. I know right now, with all due respect to our translators, there's a lot more evolution in terms of mechanisms to be able to translate. But I would say if you do have multiple language skills, it's definitely useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just in looking at job descriptions, because everything that's on the website, we look at what's languages are required. And there's different degrees of that you can see, and you can tell by the language that's used, the descriptor words. Like sometimes a language is required. So that means you should definitely speak the language. If it's desired, it doesn't mean that you have to have it, but it would be a very good thing that you do because you'd be able to be more effective in the job you have. But it's still a chance you would be able to get the job without the language, but it's highly recommended that you do. And most likely the competition that you're working against will be speaking that language. So yeah, language is it's really important in the job talks I get that I do sometimes. The first job ever got was because I spoke a second language. And so it opens more doors for you if the more languages that you speak, there's more possibilities to apply to.
And just so everyone is sure, what other language is it that you speak, Josh?
I speak French and Spanish.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Well, thank you. This is probably, yeah, all we have time for. So thank you both. Thanks everyone for joining the first session of the 3-day course, the 3-day event, sorry. I hope you've taken something out of this, and now I'll hand it back to our facilitator, Alec.
Thank you, Precious. Excellent facilitating. And thank you also to Parvin and Josh. Before I let you all go for the day and we close the session, I wanted to do a final round robin, which is a 1 minute question to each of you, just to make sure that we get your final insights. So the question is, what is your final piece of advice for those seeking new careers in this sector in either water or water resources management or WASH, or for those looking to shift within the sector? Precious, I'm going to start with you. 1 minute, please.
So as a junior engineer, I guess that's my title now, because I think in May I would have been in the industry for 5 years. I feel it's important to express that you are important and what you're doing is important, even if it feels like you're not doing much. I mean, everyone here has done a lot of things within the sector already. But yeah, you don't need to start an NGO. You don't need to fly to the smallest part of the world to make a difference. The reality is that everyone has a part to play, and we're all doing what we can. And no matter how small our part is, so even I have to remind myself of that all the time. So yeah, that would be my one piece of advice.
That's a beautiful reminder. Thank you. I think a lot of us have felt that way at some point in our careers. Josh, you're next on my screen, so I'm going to have you come off mute.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's especially with shifting between things, it's talk with as many people as possible. Ask for career advice to people who are more senior to you, ask for career advice to your peers. Just talk to as many people. Get yourself out there, ask good questions, be curious, be humble. But yeah, just really put yourself out there. That's what creates opportunities in the end.
That's lovely. And also, as you become mid-career, don't be afraid to pay it forward. You do have something to offer to those junior to you. So take those informational interviews and spread the joy and the pleasure of working in WASH. Parvin, the final word for you.
Thanks, Alec, and thanks, everyone. I think, honestly, my take is in three folds. One, start from where you're at. It's not about what's out there or something. Start from where you're at. I think that's so important. There's nothing like, your immediate environment. Be agile, and because the sector is shifting even faster than it was when I first started 25 years ago. What is happening around that you need to be aware of, and how do you contribute to it? Work hard. There's no substitute. There's no substitute for working hard. Put in the work. That's how people will talk about you. That's how people will want to work with you. And finally, like I think, it's so important for you to demonstrate your passion. Put yourself out there. Whether you're a woman, a man, put yourself out there. You are only as limited as yourself. Thanks.
Perfect. I think those are the perfect words to end the session today. Thank you once again to our lovely facilitator, Precious, and to our speakers, Josh and Parvin. I'm seeing lots of hand claps, so I'm clapping for you as well. We appreciate your time today and all of the insights that you've shared with us.